Welcome to another edition of AskReddit. What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? Steven Tyler became the guardian for a 16-year-old he was dating when he was 25 so he could bring her on tour. Knocked her up too. Ted Nugent did the same thing. Don't think he knocked her up though. There was a groupie called Lori Maddox who Jimmy Page started dating when she was 14. David Bowie took her virginity when she was 15. And Mick Jagger gave her cocaine and slept with her while she was still underage. You never hear about any of this. Listen to Stray Cat Blues. He straight up sings about effing 15-year-olds. Doesn't even want to see their ID. George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that her doctor diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors during this time often told patients' relatives of their cancer diagnosis instead of the patient, especially if the patient was female. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him since he had reached his term limits and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist. But unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this, I'm assuming, because of all of the other shitty things he did. Is no one gonna mention Caitlyn Jenner hitting that pregnant woman and forcing her into traffic? Then getting the Woman of the Year award? I guess I remembered that wrong. Turns out it was an elderly woman. On an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, comedian Nikki Glazer talked about the recent Comedy Central Alec Baldwin roast in which Caitlyn Jenner participated. Nikki had planned to roast Jenner with a bunch of jokes about how Jenner had killed someone. But Jenner refused to participate in the roast if those jokes were made. Damn, they should have agreed to not do the jokes then done them anyway. NBA Hall of Famer Karl Malone raped a 12-13-year-old. Edit, better choice of words. And then denied that the kids were his and refused to pay any child support. Karl Malone is one of the biggest pieces of shite there is. And he's still treated like a god by the Utah fan base. One of those kids grew up to be NFL offensive tackle Demetrius Bell, who is still kind of somewhat hurt by his father's initial refusal to acknowledge him. Wow, today I unfortunately learned Emma Roberts beat the shit out of her then boyfriend Evan Peters. Then continued to co-star in the same show as him. I was looking for this. She left Evan Peters with a bloodied nose and bite marks after some people called the cops on him when they had a fight in their hotel room in Canada. I'm saying this as a woman. It says a lot about how obvious the abuse is that when the cops turn up to a domestic violence case and arrest the woman instead of the man. They continued to date until early this year. Maybe she changed, but if I'm completely honest, I just feel relieved on Evan Peters' behalf. Charlie Sheen once had unprotected sex with his girlfriends, plural, when he has HIV. Do people actually forget how awful Sheen is? Yeah, he's a cocked-out party animal and all the bad that comes with that. He's never really tried to hide the fact that he's a bit of a fuckwit like that. I'm surprised the media never came down on him harder for it, but here we are. They tried, but you forget that he's a warlock from Mars. With Tiger Blood was it? Dr. Seuss was having an affair while his wife was battling depression and cancer. When she committed suicide she left him a note that said, "Dear Ted, what has happened to us? I don't know. I feel myself in a spiral, going down down down, into a black hole from which there is no escape, no brightness. And loud in my ears from every side I hear, failure, failure, failure. I love you so much. I am too old and enmeshed in everything you do and are, that I cannot conceive of life without you. My going will leave quite a rumor, but you can say I was overworked and overwrought. Your reputation with your friends and fans will not be harmed. Sometimes think of the fun we had all through the years. And the person he had the affair with would become his second wife." Sean Penn beat the puck out of Madonna. Ugh, when it was rumored that they were getting back together a few years ago. So many Hollywood news sites and magazines were all, that's so sweet. Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here going, how can you think that a woman possibly going back to the man who tied her to a chair and assaulted her with a fucking baseball bat for 8 to 9 hours is a good thing? I read Sean Penn beated Madonna and pictured him angry, slapping or punching her in the face. Not that it justifies it, at all. But I thought it would be more spontaneous and the result of a fight. But that? WTF, that's beyond bad. Yay, tying to a chair and beating with a baseball bat is definitely a step above beat. That's more like tortured.